For those of you that watch my videos, you know that this pretty much has been my background since forever, and you might have noticed that this has come along. I'm of course referring to the bookshelves, and that's what this video is about. If you're new to the channel, I'm Øystein, and I've previously tried to become a bookworm and succeeded, so now I'm a bookworm talking about books. For those of you that follow me on Instagram, you know that I spent last weekend collecting and putting these shelves together. I spent 2 whole days with this project. The problem isn't really to put the shelves together, but to make them stand together. But I think I succeeded, and I'm really happy with the result. I know that spending 2 days seemed like a lot of time for a little project like this, but I spent a lot of time looking at books, reading a little bit in the books, and deciding where the books were supposed to be. So there's that. I should also mention that all the tools I'm using are terrible, and my friends usually complain about these when they try to help me with stuff like this. So when I first decided to do this, I decided to do it right, so I now have pretty much plenty of bookshelf space. Because the reason I'm doing this is of course that my shelves were filling up and I did not have any space at all left for my books. You probably know that the bookshelf behind me here was the bookshelf that was supposed to fill up as I went along and read books. So all of the books here I've read, and that was supposed to motivate me for further reading. But now I'm pretty confident that I will continue to read books, and so I don't need that extra motivation anymore. Also, the lower shelves were being destroyed by my kids, so I needed to move the books up a bit so I wouldn't have my heart in my throat. I really don't know if that's the English expression. At least I don't have to worry about my kids destroying the books that I have in my lower shelves. Also, this shelf would have been filled before the end of the year, so I thought I would be a little proactive. For once. All this being said, I think we'll take a closer look at the new shelves. So this is the good old sturdy Billy from IKEA. The reason why I love Billy is not because of the experimental design or the intuitiveness in use, but rather that it's free. And since they're free, I can collect many of them and put them together as I want to, and that makes it perfect. I also want one more shelf for this section, but so far I haven't started that project. I will be needing some help with that, so hopefully that happens quite soon. As you can see, this is the lowest shelf so far. I tried having the books out here, but after about 10 minutes of use my kids started pulling them out and pushing them in, so I just needed to pull all the books in, and I think it'll be like that for some years. But at least all my books are in this section, so I don't have to wander around the house collecting books and putting them back where they belong. So that's an advantage. One thing you probably have figured out by now is that I like to do things in a certain way, and one thing I've been afraid of doing is to lay books down. It's not that I don't like the aesthetic, I just like that all my books are in the same way, which is dumb. But now, at least when I have enough shelf space and all my books are in one shelf, it felt more correct to lay some books down, and I must say it feels great and even better than expected. Also, I've even mixed some of the books I've read and not read in the same pile as over here. That is something I thought I'd never do, but I'm now contemplating if I'm going to start just mixing all the books instead of having one designated place for the books I've read and one place for the books that I've not read. I'm not quite sure yet, because it's really convenient to have all the books you've read in one place. If you get visitors and they ask if I have a book recommendation, you only have to go to one place and show them these are the books I've read. Maybe I'll recommend you this one. I will have to think about this for some time, but it would help my brain to have all the books just in alphabetical order instead of having 2 places where all the books are in alphabetical order. But getting back to the laying books down bit, I think this will help me not be so picky when it comes to buying books of different sizes, because now I can fit them all. Probably not. I think probably there will be books that will not fit this shelf, but those ones can stand on the floor, I guess. Also, this means that part of my music book collection is being stored here in this shelf now, and It feels more complete. And reading music-related books is something that I've been thinking about doing more of. Just because I love music and I have a lot of music books laying around, so why not start? Earlier this year I read Just Kids by Patti Smith and I truly loved that novel, and that made me think that I should read more books from artists in general and more of Patti Smith's books. Luckily I have more of them here. The only thing that's missing now is a designated poem section, I think. I do not have that many lyrical books, if that's the expression, so if you have recommendations for those, just comment below. But now I'm not afraid of sectioning the books I have, at least. I've not yet considered splitting the books up in fiction and non-fiction, because that's too much of a hassle, but maybe sometime in the future I'll do that. And maybe then I'll just move all my non-fiction over to another bookshelf somewhere, because I feel like I'm not going to stop buying books anytime soon. Being located here, my books are now shown in another way. One reason being that they're pushed up from the ground because all of my previous bookshelves were quite low, but also they're more visible in the room, and that feels good. But it also feels like I'm going to be more conscious of which books I have standing here, maybe. But time will show. Earlier I had one shelf for hardbacks and one for paperbacks. I thought this was a good idea until I only read hardbacks for a while and then felt like the paperback section was a bit crowded, and then I felt like I had to read paperbacks to get rid of the books from there and let them go in my red shelf, but that was too much of a hassle, so now they're all collected into one giant shelf. And since they're all collected now, it's easier to see which authors you have more books from than others. One example is Murakami. Because he was in the paperback section, those shelves were very narrow, so it didn't seem that much, but his books are so big that sort of feels like a lot of books, even though there are just 5 of them here. Simply put, I have more overview of my shelf space now, which is only an advantage. The couch I'm sitting on now, I spent quite a lot of time on, and that means that I'm looking at the books more now than I did before, which only means that I want to read more books. So that I find interesting and to be a good thing. Also earlier, many of the books were quite inaccessible because they were so low to the ground or under stairs, difficult to see them. Maybe I'll pick different books now that I see all of them. And it's no secret that by looking at a specific book over and over again, it might lead to you wanting to read it. So there's that. So this was a short walkthrough of my new bookshelf, and if you have questions for books you saw in my bookshelf or questions in general, just leave them below and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Also, have a great day.